Hey friends, welcome to Dishing on Divorce on WGSN-DB Going Solo Network radio, podcasts, and TV. I'm your host, Lisa Lisser, CEO and founder of LZL Coaching, a boutique coaching firm focused on divorce, relationships, and life transitions. As a recovering lawyer, a current educator, a spiritual counselor, and a divorce coach who's committed to transforming the divorce experience for everyone involved, I'm here to be your guide on the side, emotionally, strategically, and with an eye on your future. Every week, I invite guests to speak who have empowering lessons to share. This week, I welcome Sue Bruckner, MA and LPC. Sue is a holistic relationship coach and licensed professional counselor who helps sensitive women who don't recognize their lives anymore find their way back to themselves. Through her One Choice Away methodology, Sue guides women from feeling overwhelmed and invisible to making confident choices that create the peaceful, connected life they've always wanted. Whether they're navigating divorce, major life transitions, or simply ready to stop abandoning themselves. As the founder of With Intention and Tribe Rising, Sue combines professional expertise with lived experience to help women reclaim their authentic selves. And with that, welcome, Sue.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you so much.
So
I'm excited to be here.
Me too. Your work is really specific to women who are highly sensitive people. And when we first talked, you shared a little bit about what that means. So before we even go any further, can you share with my audience who is that highly sensitive woman?
Yeah, absolutely. So the highly sensitive woman, she is deeply feeling, she's intuitive, she's empathic. She also probably doesn't recognize that there's a category called highly sensitive. So the highly sensitive category, it's a biological trait, definitely not a diagnosis. It's about 20 to 30% of our population, and it's a biological wiring to have a sensory processing sensitivity, which I have to say really slow, sensory processing sensitivity. So these are women who feel so deeply. They are really prone to overwhelm. They are really aware of their surroundings. Any type of shift in their surroundings, they're going to pick up on it. And they have an incredible capacity for empathy. Divorce, for one, is a really trying time for sensitive women because of all the things that I just mentioned and so many other reasons.
Yeah, I'm sure. So what led you to become this expert in highly sensitive women?
You know, when I first started off with my private practice, I didn't have that intention. I just wanted to help women navigate life transitions. And the women that I found coming into my office, it started to dawn on me, whoa, you're highly sensitive, you're highly sensitive, you're highly sensitive. And if I had to put a number to it, I'd say maybe 9 out of 10 coming in fit into this category. So they were drawn to my work. They were drawn to how I, advertise myself, right? Something about me spoke to them, and it's because I am highly sensitive. But what I also realized is that about maybe 2 or 3 of those women actually knew that they were highly sensitive. The others didn't, and that creates such a world of confusion when you don't understand why you respond in a certain way, why you experience the world in a certain way, and you believe everything you've been told. Well, you're too sensitive, you take things too seriously, lighten up, grow thicker skin. You start to think that you're crazy, to put it bluntly, right? And so part of what I realized was that I really need to help these women understand what it means to be a highly sensitive person and how can you dance with that limitation, because in many ways it creates a lot of limitations, but it also creates a world that is so rich, that is so divine. So it's not bad news.
Right. It's not bad news. And it's like, it probably explains a lot of their feelings, right? Like so often, every time you're told, you're too sensitive, get a thicker skin, you feel like something's wrong with you. Like, and you start doubting yourself. Am I overreacting? Am I really like a hypersensitive person? And as if that were a highly negative trait, right? So what you're sharing, what I heard you say is that, there are limitations, but there are also great strengths that come with being a highly sensitive person. So why don't you tell us a little bit about those strengths so we can get that flip side?
Yeah. So, gosh, let me see where I want to even start. So, as a highly sensitive person, I mentioned empathy, right? Like you have such an ability to step into somebody else's shoes. You're probably the person that your friends come to share something because they trust that you will be able to see them. We all want to be witnessed, and highly sensitive people have that ability to witness other people. It's also like I always read this example and I sometimes share it, but it is, they say like a highly sensitive in a room of, let's just say 15 people is going to know who might need a drink, who might need a sweater. They're going to know what they can intuit and just feel what someone might need to be more comfortable. So it's a beautiful thing, right? We can also talk about how it can be the flip side, how it can be really draining. But to stick with the strengths, it's also, I love the fact that I have this incredibly rich inner world. While it might, like I joke sometimes, I remember someone asking me, like, what did you do today? And I'm like, oh, I went to Kohl's, period. And they're like, okay, cool. But inside I'm like, oh my God, I had such this rich experience while I was there. I was noticing everything. I was like delighted by certain things. It's hard to explain in words, but it's this inner world that, I wouldn't give up for anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's really a great explanation, because so often my clients are really strong empaths. They've been taking care of their families, their kids, their spouse, their parents, their siblings, and they feel what everyone else needs. And they try to be first with that thing. And they don't necessarily do that for themselves. And they also don't necessarily know how to receive it, how to receive the support when it comes to them, because they don't maybe think they're supposed to need help, because we're supposed to be able to take care of everyone. I can sense you, but sometimes I can't sense me. And I wonder if that's a trait that you see in highly sensitive people.
I do, for sure. I will say that there's a dark side to empathy, right? And one of the things that I see and I've experienced is when we are so good at empathizing, we actually allow poor behavior, right? We can say, oh, yeah, that was a awful thing that he just said to me, but I understand that he's really stressed out, right? I get it. And so we put ourselves into a position to really stay in relationships far too long. And I'm not just talking about marriage. I'm talking about with, coworkers or friends or bosses, whatever it might be, because we get it, right? Yeah. Because we get why they might be being a jerk. So, and then there's also the piece of, well, there's I'm going to say martyrdom. I don't know if that's exactly what I mean, but when we can sense what other people need, we take that really seriously. And, we might do things that maybe they should have done for themselves, could have learned to do for themselves. Right. And then we are exhausted, right? And like, oh, well, I'll care for myself tomorrow. Right. So,
and my last interview was with Mandy Page, who is a wellness coach. And she's like, self-care is okay. You are allowed to take care of yourself. And that's not selfish. That's giving you more to fill your cup so that you can help and be of service to everyone else in your life, but not to put yourself last. And that's, it's sometimes hard for highly sensitive people to take that on, that we need to be sensitive to ourselves. But part of it is a story that we've told ourselves or we've been told that you don't really deserve it. Like, your thin skin is your own problem and my behavior is okay. And that's what I see in a lot of my clients, that they've reached that point and they feel like they need to say enough, but they're not quite ready to say it or know how to verbalize it. And that's usually at the beginning of the divorce process, where they reach out to me so that I can help them build that vocabulary. So I want to talk to you now about one choice away. Yeah. So you have that in your bio, and you talk about being one choice away from a better life. So tell me more about that. How can women navigating divorce begin to take one brave choice at a time to shift from feeling overwhelmed and stuck to feeling empowered and aligned with their true selves?
Yeah, thank you for asking, because it is the foundation of everything that I do. And I didn't actually realize it, but I've been training for this for about 20 years. And what I learned from this, it's such a, how do I want to say it? I had this realization about 20 years ago, and I don't know exactly why, and it's going to sound like really basic, but it was the most profound realization that I had in my early 20s. And I was thinking about who I spent the most time with, because whose energy are you absorbing? Who are you allowing yourself to be around? Like, how are they treating you? And my answer to that was, well, I'm around myself the most. 24/7, I'm with myself. And so the follow-up to that was, why would I continue to be so mean and so critical of myself? Right? If I'm the person I'm around the most and I want to be around high vibe people, why would I be so mean? And so that led me to really believe that self-care and self-love is part of my revolution. It's not optional. It is absolutely revolutionary, because we're not taught to do it, or we're shamed for doing it. And self-care for the highly sensitive, or just the sensitive, is going to look different.
Yeah.
Right. And so I really just latched onto this. And what I've come to is that, you know what? We are always just one choice away from loving ourselves better. Always. And so that means when we start to feel gross, right? Something's bothering us. Something's making us tense. Something's clenching our jaw. That's our indicator that, whoa, I need to make a choice here. I need to pivot. What can I choose that's going to be loving myself better? What can I choose to make this situation more aligned with who I am, who I'm becoming? However we want to word it, it comes down to this: one choice away, always from feeling better.
So I love your perspective that returns the agency to the person. Yes. Right? So often we feel that life is happening to us. People are doing things to us. People are taking advantage of us. But when we reframe it to be everything is one choice away, meaning it's your choice. Yes. You get to decide. And I see you nodding for the people who are listening. Sue is nodding, saying this is exactly it. So what really resonated with you with how I just described it?
That we have agency. And that was, we're left feeling so powerless so often. But when we actually realize, whoa, I actually have a lot of power in my life. I have a lot of opportunities to make better choices. I was, again, back into my early 20s, the things that were planting the seeds for me was listening to Madonna's work. There was a song she has, and I would be on these long walks, and it's gorgeous all around me, and these words would come to me from one of her songs. It's the happiness lies in our own hands, right? Again, it's a super straightforward kind of whatever cliche statement, but when you actually really lean into that, you're like, oh yes, I have the ability. I am capable. I deserve to make a choice that's going to feel good. And that's self-care. That's loving yourself. That's loving yourself better. And so to be in that position of empowerment has helped me stay out of victimhood. It's helped me make the bravest choices and create a life that might look different than what other people think it ought to look like, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I love it.
Yeah. What I love about what you just said is it starts with me, right? If I am a loving person and it doesn't start with me, then I don't have a foundation. Then my center is missing, and I may be performing acts of love, but if I'm not following them up or making the foundation my own value and worth, then they're not going to have lasting effect. And people will begin to see that if I don't believe I have worth, then they don't need to think I have worth. Mm. So believing in yourself is one choice away. I get to decide how valuable I am. And I tell my clients always, you have intrinsic worth. We were all created in the image of the higher power. And that means we're here for a purpose and we have worth. And so often people don't know how to recognize that in themselves. And I think that that's what you're talking about with the highly sensitive person, with one choice away.
Absolutely. And one thing I just want to add, because it was a really big motivator for me to continue this work and to take it really seriously. I don't mean heavily, I didn't need to be heavy with it, but to take it as part of my mission, my life mission, is that I have 2 kids. I'm modeling to them what it means to love myself. Yeah. I didn't have that modeled to me. I didn't easily love myself until my 30s, right? And I'm approaching my 50s, right? So to model it to my kids, to model it to my clients, to model it to my friends, to anyone who's willing to listen to me, it means a lot to me, right? To be able to do that.
Yeah, because it's so important. Because each of us is a guide for someone who walks next to us. And that's really important to see. Let's continue this really beautiful conversation after our break. I'm here with Sue Bruckner, and we're talking about one choice away. And we're back with Sue Bruckner, MA and LPC. Sue works with highly sensitive women and empowers them to take back their life and take control. And she tells us we're one choice away. So let's dig a little deeper into one choice away. And I want to share that I know your personal experiences shaped your approach to coaching, and especially this one choice away methodology. Can you share how understanding your own patterns and triggers helped you find peace and healing, and how that framework can help women going through divorce?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that it's been really important to me is to stay curious, to really observe my life, almost like I'm, above watching it, and to see what's going on. I remember in my 20s, I talk a lot about my 20s. It was a super transformative, tumultuous time. But I remember being hurt by yet another man. And I was on this walk by myself and just in the thick of so many emotions. And it dawned on me, but wait, I'm the common denominator here. It keeps happening again and again, right? So what does that mean about me? Not in a judgmental way, though I'm sure I had judgment at that time, but in a way of like, what pattern is going on here? What do I need to break? What do I need to step into? How can I invite something way more beautiful into my life? So flash forward, I end up marrying someone who was not diagnosed as a narcissist, but I'm going to safely say there was narcissism there. And it was a pretty toxic relationship. And so while I learned quite a bit, I still ended up in this relationship, right? And so I made the really brave choice to leave it when I realized that my values and his values were never going to align. When I really gave myself full permission to say I deserve better, when I lean into this belief that the universe wants me to be happy, and I was not happy at all. And so I left that relationship, entered into a nightmare of a divorce process, and then entered into, different relationships. And I actually just finished, there's a book coming out and I wrote a chapter for it. And it's all about how I learned how to break my patterns through 4 relationships, starting with my husband to who I call my kind-hearted bearded partner who I'm with right now. And it's really how I recognize, whoa, pattern here. Whoa, a pattern there. Whoa, a pattern here. And each time I came to that realization because something didn't feel good. Because it was like deja vu a lot of the times. And I'm like, wait, if I really truly believe that I can love myself fully and that I do love myself fully, would I allow myself this experience that I'm having? And so often the answer was no, until I met the man that I'm with now. And now it's a whole different set of patterns that I'm learning that I have and that I need to break, right? I'm with someone who's kind, who's generous, who's emotionally available. That's really foreign to me. And so there are patterns that keep popping up that are based on my old conditioned beliefs, right? Like I actually have been holding on to this belief and I didn't know it. And it came to me after doing some soul work in this new relationship, that a conditioned core belief has been to love me fully is a weakness based on my past experiences with men, but also in family, right? And so when that came to me, I had to really pay attention to, well, okay, so what behaviors am I doing that support that belief, right? And what do I need to break? What's my revolution here? What's my evolution here? So I lost track of your question because I went on all these different stories. I hope that answered it.
No, I think that it did. I asked about how your personal experiences shaped your approach to coaching and One Choice Away. And what you shared is something that I'm sure resonates with many of my audience, that we land in relationships and they are what maybe they didn't seem like they were. So you fall in love with the charming Prince Charming, who actually turns out to be a narcissist. And then how do you respond? How do you stand for yourself when you're getting messages that tell you you're not valuable? And maybe those messages are reinforcing messages you've actually been telling yourself. And that's why they become so ingrained. So when you're talking about habits that we need to shift, I often don't talk about breaking habits, but about replacing habits with different experiences. Because you can't just say, I'm stopping. You have to actually do something instead. And that's also what you described, is that what you did instead was recognize that you have intrinsic worth and you're allowed to stand for that value and not diminish it. So you don't want someone who's going to make you smaller. And you don't need to be ashamed of how big, how powerful you really are. And the empathy, the kindness, the reflection that you can give to other people, that's a superpower. So maybe that's what's been so threatening. I don't know. But let's move on and talk about the idea of love over fear. So this seems like a really powerful principle for women in transition. So can you tell us, how does this mindset support women navigating divorce? And how can it guide their decisions when fear and uncertainty are just so prevalent?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one thing that I have realized, and this has actually been more my work post-divorce,
Okay.
and with as an only parent to my two kids, I've learned that, and it relates to divorce. I'll tie it back, but just wanting to be transparent, it really came up when I started to listen to what I was telling myself and realizing so many things just felt so bad in my body, right? I'm a huge mind-body connection person. My body's going to tell me the way forward. And what I started to realize was that I had so much fear. I had so much fear. Were they going to be okay? You know, they both have trauma. Is their trauma going to dictate their life? Are they going to enter into addictions? Are they going to drop out of school? Are they going to, and you hear me talking, my stomach is clenching. That means I'm in fear. I'm in fear. So if I can transport myself back to the divorce, I had a ton of fear. I didn't know what he was going to do. I didn't feel safe. I didn't know how he was going to talk to my children. I didn't know if it was ever going to be finalized. There are so many things I didn't know. It feels awful. And I will tell you, during that process was the first time I ever had a coach. And she would ask me, I mean, I had therapists always, but I didn't have a coach. And it was actually what really made me realize coaching is where I wanted to be. Okay. Because she helped me realize, one, when I would come in, she'd say, how are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm afraid. She would tell me I was choosing that. And while that made me really angry, right? Because I had some very legitimate reasons to be afraid. Yeah. What I learned and what I have created is this ability to turn down the volume on fear and turn up the volume on love. Well, what does love look like? What, we want to know what it feels like. What does it look like? So in the divorce, love looked like self-trust. Love looked like knowing that I was going to be okay. Knowing no matter what happened, my intentions and my ability to protect my children and my love for myself and for a brighter future, that I was never going to let go of my belief that a brighter future awaited me, right? That's a core belief of mine, right? That we can love our present even when it's really hard, but if we can attach to a future that delights us, that is aligned with us, then our whole system relaxes. So the volume on the fear gets turned down and the volume gets turned up on love. And to be more specific, that can look like I said, it can look like self-trust. It can look like, I often would need to turn up the volume on calm, right? What does calm feel like? How can I make that happen? What are tangible steps that I can do? So what I do often is, my kids are in a great place right now, but they weren't. There was a lot of school refusal, a lot of challenging minutes, months, years. And so when I felt myself get really tense, just overwhelmed by fear, I would choose differently. I would say, this isn't what I want. This feeling doesn't feel good. I know that if I'm in this, that's what I'm going to attract. That's what I'm going to see. I'm going to see all the things that might be going wrong or could go wrong. So I would just chant in my head very lovingly, love over fear, love over fear, love over fear. Anytime I felt my body respond really reactively, love over fear, love over fear. It sounds cheesy, but I'll tell you, it's been a lifeline for me. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, what I'm hearing is this choice to tell the story you need to hear. as opposed to the story you've been programmed to hear. So one of the acronyms that we learned in divorce coaching training is that fear is false evidence appearing real. And what we do is we catastrophize the future because we just don't know. So we don't have evidence of that, but we believe it because there is some part of us that wants the fear to be the definer of our story, even if it's subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
So taking the conscious effort to shift and pivot your mindset takes concerted effort. And it's hard to unlearn and stop following the neural pathways that we've been programmed to follow unless we start doing something different. And if that different activity is love over fear, you start believing it the more you do it. But it's an action. It's not just a thought. It's not just a phrase. You say it and you start to believe it.
Yes.
And that's really what I'm hearing. And so often I try to drill down with my clients, like, how do we find what you really want? Let's go love over fear. What are the things, like, is love a noun or a verb? If love is a verb, you need to do the verb and love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So what does that mean? If I choose to be afraid, I'm discounting love for myself. So let me choose something else. Even if I don't even believe what I choose, I'm going to choose it. So that's really an empowering lesson.
It is. And, it's how, so when I say one choice away, I've over the last 20 years have been collecting all these different tools that, okay, I need to pivot. What tool am I going to grab? What's going to help me make this one choice? Mm-hmm. Right. And, one of the tools, and they're all accessible. It's like love over fear. I can do that. But to do that, one of the things that I say, and it's not widely well received, but I think it makes a whole lot of sense, is that we need to be so committed to letting go of the drama. Right? The drama is the story. And we own that story like it is our birthright, like it is everything. People need to know the ins and outs of what's happened. But that story is so largely subjective. And it dictates how we respond, how we react, how we move forward. And so if we can say, I'm committed to letting go of the drama, right away, in that instant, our nervous system calms because we let go of the story, right? And then, we can create, like I was saying, like I want to attach to a positive future. I do that all the time. So it is story, but it's purposeful story. And it keeps me in alignment with my values. It keeps me in alignment with who I am and who I'm becoming. So, I'm not saying that all story is bad, but let's make it serve us.
Right. Well, what I often say especially when I'm looking at co-parents and I'm working with co-parents, I see them being in relationship with the conflict almost more than with their kids. Like the story they're saying about the fight is the story that they're holding on to because that's become their identity. And it's hard to shift our identities. But as soon as you release your attachment to the conflict, you are stronger. And in the case of co-parents, your children will thrive better if and when you choose to unhook from the conflict.
Yeah.
And so thank you so much. This has been really a powerful, powerful conversation. And I'm wondering, I know we talked earlier that you have some free resources that you want to share with the audience. So tell us what they are and how people can get them.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's so much more I want to share, and we could talk for hours,
We
right? But
can, yeah.
one of the tools that I've created, it's called Trust Your Truth, and it has 3 transformative tools for your divorce journey, right? So what do I mean by that? It's really, when I talk about trust, that is learning how to trust yourself again, or maybe for the first time, is one of the most loving choices you can do. And so this guide walks you through just 3 tools that I use. One is connecting with your values, which, I say that and we say, yes, we know what's important to ourselves, but do you really, really, truly know? Can you name your top 2 values? Do you know what they sound like, what they feel like, there's so much to do there. And the other 2 tools are, I have so many tools that I teach, so I chose 3 for this guide. I won't even go into the other ones right now because I'd love for the listeners to dive in. It is so important that we can say, you know what? Not only do I love myself, but I trust myself. And I trust that this journey is where I need to be, and that I am moving toward this life and that I love. I have a plaque on my wall that says, "She designed a life she loves." I bought that before I left my marriage because that was my compass, right? That was like, I can do this. So that's what the guide helps you with. Trust your truth. And there's so much more than what I even put in that guide.
No, absolutely, because life is a journey, right? One of the things that I do when I work with a CDFA, a Certified Divorce Financial Advisor, I work with his clients to help them design vision statements where they connect with their values and create a blueprint for their future. And we really are looking at what are your top 2, 3 values, and what are the values you want to infuse in your children, and what are the steps you're going to take to ensure that that happens. And unhooking from the conflict might be the first step.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It's not an easy step, but it's a powerful step.
It is.
Thank you so much. We're already a little past the end.
Darn.
I want you to share, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, go ahead and email me. It's here, Sue Bruckner at withintentioncoaching.com. You can also visit my website, but if you were to visit today, it is not up to date. I am currently working on a new website. So emailing me and just connecting that way is probably the best. I love soulful one-on-one connections, and let's get into a conversation.
Wonderful. I love that. Spirituality is so valuable, and connecting soul to soul is what gives you the support you actually need, because it might be a long time. You might be a stranger to your own soul because you've been in a relationship that has told you it's not valuable, and you started leaning into that story. So, Sue, it sounds like with you're going to help people lean into the other story, the story that they get to choose. And I value that work. So thank you again. And for my audience, as always, you can find me at lisa@lzlcoaching.com. And at my website, lzlcoaching.com, you can book a free 30-minute complimentary discovery session. So thank you, everyone, for listening. And we'll see you next time at Dishing on Divorce.